Hello everyone, I'm your host MX2, and in this video we'll be making a clock. So I'll just go ahead and split this window and we'll turn this into an image editor, and let's just bring our image over. So basically I got this book called Patented, and I was looking at it and I was like, wow, these models would be fun to look at and discuss and talk about. So on the very first page of designs, after getting past the intro, they were talking about clocks, and I was just looking at them, and clocks are real important. Instead of lecturing on the importance of clocks, I'm just going to drag over some reference images. This one's from the original patent, which I thought looked good, and this is a zoomed in image of the actual clock. So we're just going to get in there and just make some clocks. So now that we have this, let's begin. So I'm just going to drag this over to the viewport, and that turned it into an empty. I didn't even have to hold control or anything, but modern day Blender got rid of Alt R, Alt G, or at least in my world. I know I could put it back, I just haven't yet. So we're just going to reset it over here. Let's set this to 90. And let's position this. So I'm just going to use change offset, and we're just going to attempt to center it, and also let's change the transparency, and we could probably perfectly center it if we want to be a weirdo about it. It doesn't matter, we're just going to approximate a little bit, but let us go ahead and get started. So for this shape, probably the easiest way, let's just start off with a UV sphere. We'll F9, face it towards view, just scale it up a little bit, and we look at it from the side and it's a more interesting shape. In fact, maybe we can make some adjustments and then get them to fit up better. So I'm just going to grab this, Control plus, grow it. You can see my keystrokes, and let's Alt X and symmetrize that to the other side, and we see that we probably ate a little bit too much. There we go. Now it's actually precise, but it's a little long. So let's take this and RZ90 rotate it sideways, and we'll just set ourselves up to have a secondary reference image, just in case we need to jump between the views. And let's actually scale this down according to how we're looking at it on the side. We could also rotate it, get that angle that we're kind of going for here. But let's really look at this shape. Kind of an interesting shape to it, isn't it? Like, it's almost spherical, but it isn't. In fact, it's kind of a deceptive shape, at least to me. So let's just grab a loop, go ahead and scale this up. We'll scale this one up and just kind of eyeball it. We'll kind of split at a point in order to get this to look closer to what we're looking at here. So let us just bring this over. We'll scale this back up. It's really freestyle in here. I actually didn't look at this previously. I had GPT located for me, and then I was like, wow, what a good reference image. Good dog, computer. And the computer said, good dog to you too. I'll turn your whole family into computer chum later. But anyways, I'm back over here working. Another day. Another bunch of very strange news to have to reconcile. Isn't that right? But we're just modeling on, computers were supposed to be doing this for us, but it's taking longer than expected. So I'm going to select this loop and Control F, grid fill. I'm surprised they let me do it off of an edge selection. Get on Blender, it should be chill about it. so we're looking pretty good from the side and from the front. You know, it just needs to look like it. You know, I'm gonna go into Insolve and let's just create a line off the mesh. I'll hold Alt so that way it cuts through. I could have also used Boxcutter and Ngon, but whatever you want to do. In fact, I'm going to get rid of that, and I think what I want to do is press E, S, we'll scale this, bring it out, and just completely mess things up, making mistakes that will surely be regrettable at some perspective in the future. Let's also press F4, go under Preferences, and type in F2. And F2 isn't around, so let us locate F2 and go ahead and get ourselves F2. Alright, and now when I press F, it just jumps all the way around. Just one of those Blenderisms that once you get used to it, you can't live without it. Also, it's not in any other application. Not that I would want to see it there. If I did, I would grimace at it. I wouldn't even be like, hell yeah. I'd be like, leave Blender alone. Like, leave Brittany alone. Alright, we can press W, exit out. We just need to do that one thing. And I don't even know why I'm trying to be so precise with it. Alright, let's look at this one. And what do we want to do here? Do we want to bring it in and then expand it like so? Alright, let's take a look at this. And so far, so good. I didn't expect to actually spend a lot of time modeling this thing. You know, the highlight is supposed to be about making a clock. In fact, I was reading how the invention of the clock basically changed everything when they started putting them in public squares. Previously, places would close at noon because it would be the hottest time of the day. But clocks kind of formalized things. It formalized society. It was like an innovation that caused like a lot of work to occur. So it's not really discussed a whole lot, but so many industries come and go. But yet I still see a need to model. You know, I try to stick this in Hunyuan, and you know, the results would be abysmal. I would find myself cleaning up. You know, it's like referencing the final result. You know, it's terrible. So I pressed Alt V E just to jump into EVHQ just to get the shading a little bit better. And let's take a look at the back and see how we're treating things. You know, we could probably lower the auto smooth or raise it. There we go. Actually get it nice and rounded. And you know, let's jump back around to the front and take a look at what we have from the side. So originally I cut like a block in it, but we see that it's like a more interesting shape. Like, let's get in here and have fun. I'm trying to not turn this into a full-on documentary about the designer, but he was a very interesting person. He started off designing things for a motion picture theater. I'll have his notes off on the side over here. Like, his purpose was to assess drawings to make them better, to assist manufacturers, but he realized that working with manufacturers would be better than giving them notes. So it was like an innovation in manufacturing for him. In fact, when you look at early America, a lot of the greatest people created innovations just kind of in the way things were done. to just increase efficiency. Like, it's not so much that it was a new thing, it was just a better way of doing the existing thing. Let's press Alt-Z, see what we're getting here. I'm so glad Alt-Z is a thing. You know, anytime I'm using the tools, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm just thankful. I'm like, wow, that works. That works. And that in itself is a perpetual struggle. But we go on. You know, while we look at the nation on the cusp of what is probably going to be another depression style scenario, while normally things would be fearful, I'm also observant that I have done this previously, and Boxcutter has also survived previously. So depressions are nothing new. Alright, I'm so glad that Blender let me make that bevel gesture right there. However, what is stopping it? Okay, this one's stopping it. Let's get rid of that for a moment. I don't know if I want to do that, but we're going to try that because getting this is more important. And we're just having a little fun with the clock here. And so for this one, we'll do the same thing. We'll reduce it by 1. See, but the one that we would have to reduce is actually right there. Then we can actually get the curve that we need. So let's try it again. Like so. And let's just jump that there with J. Really just hacking it here. So from here, we will go ahead and bring this up. I resist the urge to just be a big blabbermouth in this video and just be talking about stuff and things. You know, we'll keep it relaxed. No need for anything hyper. So we want to go ahead and jump over to join. Set this to be resolve. You always trip when it's not that. It's like as if someone else has been using the tool, except it's not the case. I mean, who else would possibly be using my computer and at the same time using these tools and reconfiguring them? That's so much serendipity that it would just make no sense. Alright. And we're just getting in here and just correcting some of our mistakes. Try to get a little bit of that roundness back that we lost. Probably doesn't even matter. Like, y'all did not come here to watch me model today. Someone will comment, I came here to watch you model. The title will be a modeling tutorial. Just kidding. Alright, so leaving all of this, what we want to do is, you know, this one I also want to round out just because I just feel it, but it probably is inaccurate. It probably breaks in this, and I'm completely misunderstanding the shape and hallucinating things that are not there. You know, we must all become psychiatrists and analyze ourselves and give ourselves verdicts. So for this, I want project loop. Let's try that again. Let's try it again, but zoom out more. And that will do it. Being project based, but at least now that we're on the other side, we have our loop that we're able to put over on the other side. I mean, if we're trying to, you know, be that sort of modeler today, you know, hit this thing with a line while we get in suite up, just because that's very in suite. Let's come back and look at what we have going on. So we are getting far with our clock. So, of course, if you want this clock, it is for sale wherever clocks are sold. I assume in a museum. I'm sorry. I was looking at this thing on eBay. You know, not that I would want this clock. Like, I'd just be curious on where you can get one. And eBay is the place. Alright. In fact, let's move everything to the floor. And what's nice is everything moved to the floor according to the mesh, but not according to the reference images. If they would have sat on the reference images, I would have looked like a fool today. Just so you know, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I would have been losing myself in thought as the cats meowed at me, and that would have been why. Alright, just scale this in. I know, kind of hacky to do this way, but it is a simple clock. In fact, like I said, the hard part was supposed to be on doing the hands. Not to mention, after this, I was looking at the next page, and the next page was also interesting. Like, everything is a rabbit hole as far as design and the inventions. Like, I mean, in a way, every invention has been kind of damning to us, mankind, I mean. So I'm just hitting it with the smooth, but we probably want to protect the edges, so let's go back to smooth, and we see that shift creates an auto vertex group, and what that will do is keep the middle from getting damaged. So we're just smoothing it out, and that will do. Maybe a little bit of expansion will be needed, just due to the way subdivision is. Subdivision is such a reducer. So back to work. I see details in here that probably are not here. They probably are not, but you know, just for kicks, I was gonna say we should just inset the whole thing. Just grab this, and hit it with a inset, and then just reduce it until it works. Which would require a lot. And in my head, I was already being told that was a bad idea, because the way inset works is it inflates the mesh away from itself, so you're not really able to do that. Not to these areas where I had to do weird stuff with the mesh in order to get the geometry to work. It just isn't going to inflate right. You know, that's what the voice inside my head is telling me. But if I grab it here and do it, then it's another story. You know, now I can bring this inward. And voila. So now we're kind of looking at our result. You know, we put these other things in the back too. I mean, what is this thing? Let's try 16. Let's try 12. Let's try. No, I'm kidding. just keep reducing. Excuse me for having a little sense of humor today. All right. So what we want to do is SX. We'll put a few of these bad boys in here. You know, like I said, my hotkeys are showing. If you can't see them, then, you know, that aspect is failed. I have to buy a new keycap program. And let's look at our tooltip. So we want a knurl. But maybe we want to... Let's try poking. And then let's... triangles to quads, and then let's see, what are we trying to get to look like that? So what is that? You know, it looks like it's really simple, but it's not something really round. So it's like a lower resolution circle than this, but it's like rounder. Do I feel like being, how we say, extra read all about it with some knurled knobs. Let's really look at this thing. You know, everything is just everything's just a thing when you break it down. Like the person I probably hang out with the most always is breaking down things to things. It's like, yeah, this thing is just a thing. I'm like, how's it feel ruining everything you ever watch? Is that your thing? To just, it's like, yeah, it's just a thing. It's like, there's no way to live. There's no way to live. But he's right, you know. Everything is just a thing. So this thing is just this thing. But I'm gonna have to make some judgment calls here. Look, I'm gonna assume this thing's sticking out like that. And let's also go back and insolve, and this time okay, so we never put line snapping on this puppy. A strange oversight. I see that now. You know, sometimes you gotta look at it with a clean set of eyes. Let's press V, rip that. Let's grab this, rip it to the other side. Throw that over to the other side. So we get something like that. And at least now we can array it. So we're already moving along. And then we want to round it out when we tile it. So who knows, that maybe this will work. I kind of am eyeballing it, so I'm feeling a little silly here. I'm feeling less silly. I'm confident again. Yeah, I was right the whole time. No, I'm playing. Alright, now I'm real confident. Alright, so we're looking at it from the front. What about our rotation? Do we have unapplied rotation? I can't even test it with Alt-R anymore. So I have to go find it in this panel. And press Control A. Let's get rid of that, and let's twist 360. Alright, and at least now inside the modal we can get it just right. And by just right, I mean we need to bring it in and tighten it. Alright. I like what I'm saying. I still wish for some sort of edit modifier, like a modifier that would make this a object that I could then go in edit mode and just fill the face. I mean, I only need to do like a little bit, but because I have to do a little much, I have to duplicate and hide an object, and I'm just gonna go ahead and apply everything. And I don't even have select loops boundary loop map to shift tilde, and now with that I could just select thing, shift tilde, select thing, shift tilde, and just, you know, select this, and we are nearly done. Alright, we're up at the top again. Offset, at least to get it to be smooth. If you're going to grid fill, you gotta have a little bit of decency to you. So my decency is just making it align to an axis where I'll be able to mirror it if I ever had to. Who knows, maybe I'll mirror it after this. Feeling cute, might mirror later. And that's just this one. That one is another story. So let's bring the one back that we had, and we'll hide that again. You know, don't want to mess up the original. And I could be a hack, I could just do something like that, but I might get busted by the neural knob commission. We don't want that to happen. So also probably sound a little scatterbrained. It's because I'm receiving a few messages that I'm not responding to. I probably should respond. Then I'll stop getting messages. Alright. And I'm just playing with numbers here, just seeing what feels good. At something a little tighter, I put 6 on that. I'm proud of that. I stand by these decisions. We'll fill in the face. We'll inset it. And since we still have both sides selected, actually I was going to say Alt-S, but Alt-S is kind of reserved for the top, and I feel like I'm embellishing details here, making things up. But we will accept that. Maybe we can also give it a little bit of compression. And what is our accuracy bar? Nothing. We're just having fun with a clock. Just some casual modeling. I don't even know why I'm setting them up for subdivision. I don't even think they need this much detail. And I'll have to see what the back of the clock looks like, because when I just take them and just stick them here, I'm already wrong. You know, something about assumptions and being an ass. So that's the first one. Second one, and then we bring this one over. And I mean, what do you want to do? You want to punch holes for this? You want to make specific holes for this to make it a fully functioning clock, all the way down to these things working. That's a little more detailed than I'm used to. So I'm going to drop the 3D cursor here. We'll bring up a plane, and we'll do view, and I'm just going to scale it in And for this shape, let's just Alt V symmetry, and we'll just choose a side. The other side no longer matters. And let's just go for this shape. Look, these came back with a vengeance. They're like saying we don't matter. Let us go ahead and place a vert here. And what I want to do is bevel it, but I want to invert it. So, is it O? No. One of these options, we're just looking at what we have down here. You know what, we'll use the F9. And we'll change the profile to be -1. So that was what it was. We needed to adjust the profile. And we're just going to add a point and then just move this over. Let's grab this, bevel it, and this is why I never mess with profile. Alright, and we're just getting ourselves back to 0.5. And then going back to adjust it. And we can delete this edge. Maybe something like that. And then let's go ahead and choose screw. And now we have our shape. And it's closed all the way around. In fact, because we saw no red, that means that there are no issues with the normals as well. So sometimes it's a gambit as far as this thing goes with whether or not you actually need to press F during the screw operation. So that's something that's good to keep in mind. From here, we could probably grab this, and I think if we had actual reference images, we could make them not show whenever we are not in orthographic or perspective view, or whenever we're not in, here we go, we can make these not show except when we're in perspective. So I forget about these quality of life features that have really changed the game since I started modeling. In fact, how do we want to deal with this? I'm just going to Shift D, P, separate it, select that, we'll bring it down, and bring it back, and then bring this down to the level of this vertex. So we're done. So what are we looking at here? Some sort of braided cable. We are going to just bring in a plane and align it to view, and just elongate it into a rectangle. Let us apply our scale first. Alright, so I'll extrude it out and then pop it out a bit. We'll rotate that 45 degrees, create another one, rotate it 90. So we get something like so. However, we want them to be a little bit close, so we'll use vertex snap. Now let's bring them both together, and let's apply rotation. So we are just arraying these and then rolling the wheel, and then we can control to add another one. So I wasn't thinking in terms of diagonals And in terms of like what this shape actually was, like it's just sideways bricks. I'm it's funny when things get simplified. I was just telling you about my buddy who always simplifies things. If he was here, he would have simplified it to something stupid, and I would have been getting on to him about it. It's like massive amounts of Charlie Brown here. Sorry, I'm getting lost in the sauce. Let's try that again. Let's try twist 360. And the thing is, it's simple deforming it for us. And I pressed F, causing Blender to damn crash. So one moment. Alright, I'm back. I actually didn't even close the other Blender. It's still open underneath because we were examining why it crashed. So let us go ahead and just do this manually. We got to apply the rotation. And then we can roll some of these in there, but maybe not too many. You know, it is a very simple hose. And then we can control click array to add another array on top of that, and we'll just place that on top. And I didn't think building a clock would take so long, just of course, but we want to now put a displace on it. So maybe bring it out so that we can use simple deform to bend it, but we want to bend it the right way. So this way almost works. Let's 360. $370. And at least now let's just bring it all the way around. So we could call it a day, say that that was what we meant to do. You know, how do we add more? We go to the first one in order to add to our count. So let's try it again. Alright, and they're just real simple little hoses sticking out the back, but no need to be derailed by some Geez, these hoses are so small in the scheme of this clock. I might have to cut this part out of the video. I mean, why have it? Alright, I'm going to hit this with the dice from view, and maybe only hit it on this axis, which who knows what axis this is at this point. No, we gotta give it a unified dice. The shape was looking in bad shape previously. Now we at least got something suitable, even though I think dramatically over detailed. One of my favorite things about making a shape is hitting it with this curve, which once you hit it with the right axis, we now have a shape that, you know, we're able to just deform however we want. Alright, so something like that will definitely do. And then for the other one, we'll just do the same thing, except with the curve, I'm going to Alt S to just make it a little bit smaller. And for this shape, there's a couple of ways it could be approached. I'm going to just draw a circle with Boxcutter, bring it out, just bevel the top, and then We'll just reposition this one to be in place. And I could have probably drew it on the shape, but yeah, I'm just lazy sometimes. And you know, what are the odds that someone is going to come looking up inside my clock? In fact, I'm just surprised I'm seeing so much stuff in the back of this thing. Also see that it's held together by 3 flat heads, so that's another case for good old Boxcutter. Let's just draw it out. Looking at this image for scale. Something like so, RX90. C in order to clamp it to 1. Alright, so from here, let's put an underscore on quad weld. And now we can cut it without it reordering our bevels, which would be bad. And I'm probably missing something from the reference image. I'm probably looking at it way too close, so it probably is something like that. And as far as centering this goes, probably just do it by eye. I wish I could use radial 360 and have it go around this, but use an empty to adjust its offset. Also, when I duplicated that, I didn't keep the boolean. So let's go under operations and let's shift click uniquify in order to duplicate the shape while keeping the boolean connection. Otherwise, when you move it, it will be separate, and we don't have Alt R anymore. We have been cursed. And Henry Dreyfus, the guy whose clock we're making, he met a fatal end to carbon monoxide poisoning in the garage alongside his wife. But he had such a good outlook about him when it came to inventing things. I'm probably not even discussing it with the proper gravity it deserves. We will turn off X-ray. That's what we're looking at here. And we'll do the same thing here. Turn off X-ray. And for this part, we're going to give it a glass material from the Alt-M menu, but we're going to shift-click it on the blank material. That is not where that's supposed to save at. I have to talk to PowerSave about saving it in the damned files location after a fail. So here we are. We're looking at our clock, and at least for a brief moment, we can revel in our success. Let us delete everything that isn't essential to the scene. So that way when I press Shift C, we come in on it fine. And I'm just going to bring in a plane. And for this plane, we'll just give it a little presentation. So I'm going to jump over to the shading tab. And what we want to do here is drop a gradient. Let's see what we're looking at. And we got a spherical. texture coordinates, and if we hit it with an object, it should be right in the center. Mix material. Let's just go under shader and do a mix shader. And then shader transparent. I think it's transparent. Maybe it's translucent. Let's find out. Alright, no, this will do. There we go. Now we have something like that happening. And then we want to just remove this principal shader and replace it with anything better. In this case, we'll just do a glossy. Alright, let's go back to our layout tab. And we'll just press Alt V, V, choose a background just to present it, and press V to hide it. And now we have something like that whenever we're looking at it just in our viewport. Just real quick for the presentation. We probably do better on the floor. There we go. And why do we not get enough samples here? Let's jump to 64 for the viewport. Do we get oh wow. See, when you turn on the ray tracing, that's when you're really cooking. Let's see, higher, better, the precision. Wow, rendering is really upgraded. Alright, so now for the rest of this. So for the rest of this, we will just give it generic materials just to make it to the end of this. And let us press Alt M, and we'll just give it a blank material. And the thing about blank material is we can go under the F9, and if we just click it, we can reshuffle it again just to see what other combinations we get, like maybe something a little more desaturated, less flamboyant. Also, I see this like faceting in the circle, and I just want to do something about it. I mean, it's not the most important thing, but let's just grab this shape, and we've already sharpened it and everything, so we can give it a few levels of subdivision. And let's take a look at what we have again. So this is what we're looking at least for our look dev scene. Kind of almost has character to it. However, because it's an invention that advanced us as far as society and technology, probably got to beat it up. So here we are. We're looking at the very beginnings of the clock. We just got started with it, made a quick model of it, gave it a quick material, and with that, we are done. Take 3, action. Alright, so here we are. We are dealing with part 2. So I'm going to press numpad 1, look at it from the front, and we're just going to take the reference image into local mode. And for these, what we want to do is just quickly make these, how many rounds do we want our circle to be? Let's try 16. And we'll just bring that out, and I'm just going to delete everything except for a single face, and we're just going to simplify our method, and we'll never talk about that. Just kidding. But since this is my third attempt at dealing with these hands, I figured I would try it a slightly different way. Alright, maybe we scale this in. Why can't I see it see-through? Alright. Alright, and that is the second hand. Just quickly modeled it. We'll press F2, call that second, and then we'll maybe we'll duplicate it. I was about to duplicate and start working on it, but prior to that, we probably want to snap our cursor to selected. And then what I'm going to do is Shift D, duplicate my image, right click, and then H to hide it. And we're just going to take the one that remains, and I'm going to press period and use 3D cursor as my pivot point. I'm just going to rotate the next hand, the hour hand, in roughly the same position. Now, I'm not literally making the clock, I'm just making the clock. It almost sounds philosophical when you think about it. Never mind, I was about to start making jokes about making the clock, but I suddenly remembered all the times when people were probably not doing the best things with clocks. Alright, so we'll extrude this up. From here, what we want to do is subdivide, and then we'll extrude this up, creating this. And let's use a little box cutter for just a moment, and I'm just going to click to turn it into knife. We're just going to knife across. For some reason it's just hard to see that face. Oh, it's because we have this other mesh sitting on top for a second. So while we're in 2D, this would probably be a little easier to just solve, like, if we wanted to solve it. And by solve it, I mean, we just make it a shape that isn't, we'll just jump into insolve. And we see that it gets a little tight over here. And I don't even know why I'm solving the other side. And I'm not even really planning on putting subdivisions on this, so this is just excessive. But in any case, we now have the next hand. So I'm going to rotate this again, just to give me something nearly approximate. And now we can just mess around with the idea of just modifying this one to fit. Back to work, so we'll grab this, bring this part up, and it wasn't supposed to be deformed so much. We're probably messing up an angle here, but it doesn't matter. So small, right? Let us split this over to the other side. And I guess we can set up their order. Let's bring back the final one. They all share the same origin. So F2, our hand, second hand. Alright. And we could probably just take all of these and give them a bit of solidification. We could shift click sharpen just to put a little auto smooth on them. And let's look at what we've done here. This one probably doesn't have to be so solid. Maybe something like that, so that way we can work free of intersection. And then instead of trying to draw a point, actually in the previous time what I did was I put a face here, and then I used static dots to basically put a point and then press tab to freeze it, deselect, and then just, oh look, I messed myself up talking about it, deselect, and then just jump off of this to create another cylinder in the right place. Like, jumping off was always one of those things that was a struggle. Alright, so something like that. And that's just the pen. You know, do we even need it? We'll call it pen, and we'll pretend we do need it. So from here, we can exit out of local mode, and we still have our reference image. We can delete that one, we don't need it, but we don't want to mess things up. What was this? I mean, we got kind of a few strange items just kind of floating around. We'll move this to cutters as well. So where are our hands? They are inside of the clock. We'll hide this for a second. One. Try to select through something. Of course, I'm going to select the thing that I'm clicking on, inevitably, because I'm clicking it over and over. It's raycast based selection. Alright. Now this has an angle to it that will have to be dealt with in the final version, but for now we at least have enough to get started. So I think I spent too long with it. I'll probably have to time lapse it, so let us go ahead and just put this as hands in a new collection and go back to collection 1. Let's also put this in hands, and let's just shift A, add a plane, and we're just going to give this a geometry modifiers node. Go here, and the first thing we'll do is bring in the hands. Always make a joke about my cat having hands because my cat will beat me up outside. Alright, relative, that's what we're looking for. I was about to start just clicking like a maniac. My mistake, ignore that. I just get spastic. So now that we have this, we probably want to separate them. And this was how I did it previously, was I used this with separate geometry, and then I use index, and we'll go in local mode now to begin messing with this. Alright, so index, compare, we want the one that's mean. By mean, I mean able to be specific, so We'll put an integer here. We'll just say equal. So that's as good as it gets for that part. So first thing we'll do is deal with the minute hand, the second hand. Probably be the funnest. And hopefully we got a good origin. Let's do rotate instance. Alright, and I think we have what we need. So I'm going to bring this out and choose a combine XYZ. What the heck? Alright, so I brought this out to a combine XYZ, and yet a numerical value is already input. Blender just, it changes on you. Let's also take this time to increment our save file by 1 with a Control-Shift-S, clicking the plus. So now from here, let's bring in time, seconds, and we have a clock. We're done. The tutorial's over, except there's a lot more that we need out of our rotation. So the first thing is we probably want it to move in a fashion similar to a clock, and also maybe it is that simple, come to think of it. So let's get this party started. One of my favorites that I like to ask AI about all the time is modulo. I'm like, you gotta explain this to me. What is going on? So for the second one, we'll just put 60. And now we have it behaving in a more second-hand-like fashion, except it's behaving like a clock of life. So let us bring in math, and this one we will set to divide, and we'll divide it by 60. And now we have it behaving properly. The next thing, though, is we want to multiply this by 2 pi, but we can't just type in 2 pi, we gotta type in 2 times pi, and now we see things working the way it's supposed to. So let us set our time range to something like 1500, and let's just watch mortality pass us by. No, I'm playing. I gotta stop making those jokes where people think I'm serious. I'm making jokes with it. It's like a type of self-deprecating humor. I mean, we're all getting old, right? But in any case, now that we have this, we can plug that up, and basically we've created our system for the second hand. In fact, if we wanted to be a little cleaner, we could tie this to a value, and then we're good to go there. But I actually think it looks a little bit cleaner just like that. So maybe we can call that a day. So I'll press Control F. That's not the hotkey. Join a new frame doesn't have a hotkey listed next to it, so I guess I don't have that as a hotkey. Let's press F2 and we'll call this second hand. Not like it's being given away, which I also realize could be what it implies. For this, we're going to pull this back, and this little machine, I mean really this little machine, let's Control-Shift-D. That way we can duplicate it while keeping the connection. And we're just going to connect a viewer here, so that way we can jump down to the minute hand. So the minute hand is another story. What we want to do with this one is basically multiply it by what we're multiplying it by. So let's remove this. We are going to take this out, put it on a value. Oh wait, we're going to take it out, put it on a math. And this one is just going to be 60 times 60. And we'll plug this into both. My mistake. We need to break this out of the group. So I'm going to right click and just choose to remove from frame. This thing's important. And let us plug this into the first input. And just take a look at what we have so far. In fact, let's do a join at the very end. And we'll connect the viewer there. So we have the second, we got the minute. They're both working at the same time, being that we've done nothing so far. And that is because we also need to connect it up here. And then we'll see that this will move over time. So it'll take a long time for us to see that though. So let us pull back and just take a look at what we have. And this one, I have my instant switches at the very beginning. We could probably clean up the method used for them. Make them a tight little machine. And it almost looks good, except it does not. Let us go back to the beginning. And what we probably want to do is be able to add to this time. So coming from here, we just do an add. And connect that here. And at least then we can get something a little more interesting happening with it. But at least now we have the minute hand, except it'll take a minute to see a minute. Sorry, over here doing clock puns. I originally envisioned talking a lot more about, you know, the fun facts of clocks and how they change time itself and literal. Hey, another clock pun. Hey, these things write themselves. Don't get mad at me. So I'm going to grab all of this and try that again. Let's Control Shift D. We'll duplicate it one more time, and we're just going to call this hour hand, which sounds like we're saying hour hand. Let us jump our viewer up here while we make sure that we have and look at that, the hour one turned out to be the very first one. And we also want the flexibility to be able to give this thing unusual times. And also to be able to, you know, add to the seconds to be able to cause these things to fly around like how people see clocks in movies when... Okay, that was it restarting. I was like, okay, that's not supposed to happen with a clock. But we are now getting to that good part. By good part, I mean being done. So what we want is this little piece. It's so unimportant. But if we leave it out, then it won't work right. Well, it won't look right. Alright, so let us deal with this hour hand because we're not done. We're just kind of sitting here. So through a few calculations, you come up with that there's 3,600 seconds and an hour. And we want to multiply that by 12 and connect it to this one and connect it to this one, and everything else can remain the same. So now we're able to move the clock. So now it comes time for us to kind of package this thing up. And we are looking for our input. Here we go. Ooh, not like that though. That's why I was when my mouse hovers over here. Alright. Let's kind of clean up what we're looking at here. Not everything has to be outside. So from the input, we are going to just connect up to a math. I guess not from there though. Probably the most straightforward way would be for us to just press in with our group input and just add a series of sockets for inputs. And I'm going to make all of these integers, which I could duplicate them because I would make it where I could only set it between 0 and 300, and I would just clone that, but I have to press 0, then tab, then 300 for these. Negative values are just so ugly, and it's so weird to see like such a large negative number, but we're going to call this hour, maybe second, minute, hour. Alright, so for the seconds, we just want to be able to just add to the seconds that's coming over here. So we can just do a math and then connect that up. And if we play around, we already see that we're getting the desired result. In fact, when we play timeline, we should always have the timeline playing, I guess. Now the next thing is whenever it comes to the minute. So for the minutes, we want to extend, bring out a math, and for the math, we just want to multiply by 60. Okay, so my problem here is one of organization. Let me delete these nodes, and we are going to just pull this off to the side and deal with it cleanly. It's a matter of organization. I basically set up a mess here. Alright, so what we want to do is from the hours, pull out a math node, and we want to set a multiply to 3600, and then we can duplicate this, and for the minutes we're going to multiply it by 60, and for the seconds they're probably just going to add. Alright, and then we bring this add, we connect our multiply, we bring another add, we connect this multiply, and then we bring another add, and we're going to bring this here, plug this in, and now we have the ability to move the hands, and they are connected with each other, so we can advance, except for hour. should I be able to set second to, 3000? We're just having fun here. But should the hour just be free? We're going to say that that makes sense. We're going to say that makes sense because I don't think that was ever a concern before. But now the more I think about it, the more I'm realizing I'm also overthinking that as well. So let us look at our graph here and think about how we could possibly clean things up. I mean, am I the biggest fan of this thing just sticking out like so? We probably grab this and turn it into a machine that, just outputs, but we're actually done. So why even bother organizing this anymore? Now we just need a material. So I'm going to give it a blank material that will not show up because we're using geometry nodes. And we're just going to set material as a node at the end. And this is material 02. And we're just going to call this hands. And at least now we have the ability to just scroll through it infinitely, just going through combinations with material scroll. But let's come out of local mode. So for someone who is preparing to deal with this in a completely other scene, now I feel silly. But now we have our clock ticking, even though it's not oriented correctly. Also, we have more work to do, to be honest. Let's go back in here, and if we were to look at what we have here, we have these little ticks happening along the top, and we have numbers. So we probably should go ahead and put those here. So let's get back to work. This whole shebang is the watch setup. So I am going to just turn all of this into a group. Like so. And then now we'll be able to go on with our lives. We'll just call this group hands, because this system's got hands. But we do have to deal with our inputs. They're out of order. Let's see, does that make it better? No. Alright, let's not do that. Alright, second, minute, hour. It's just easier to label these and be responsible than it is to try to figure it out alternatively. Alright, so we have our ticking hands. Oh yeah, we'll let them tick. And we have our controls on the outside where we can control the passage of time. That very nice, unless you're against the passage of time. I'm going to bring in a mesh circle and 12. And if we look at this, we see that it's rotated the wrong way. Let's also bring up a join. And we're just going to transform geometry. There's probably a way easier, more visually followable way for me to set that up than how I did it, but we'll set this to 90. I wonder what order those points are. Well, let's bring in a string to curve. And we'll go with value to string, and we want each point to basically tell us. So for that, I'm going to do a for each, and I love this thing. We'll connect this up to the join. And of course, it's sitting face down. I mean, I guess in a way, everything kind of needs a fill curve. There we go. I was just looking at it, but I wasn't seeing it. Let's Control H, just to shrink that down a little bit. So we now have our foundations, but there's probably some things that I need to do. I was about to mute the clock hands, but we just put so much work into those, right? So from here, what I want to do is it's a mesh. Is it an instance? We look at this, and yes, it tells us here that it's an instance. So what we want to do is realize the instance, and then we want to put a bounding box around it. And with the bounding box, we get something like that. And one of my favorite tricks with the bounding box is being able to take the minimum and subtract it from the max, and then multiply it by negative 0.5. And if we're lucky, and I'm on my A game today, then we get the thing perfectly centered, or at least recentered, in a way that's more effective for our needs. So this is where, in fact, it's supposed to be added. I see. So I didn't even remember it correct. So we add it, and then we multiply it by negative 0.5, and now we have it perfectly centered. So no matter what, even if we say something like cats, it's in the center. And we could have done it here, but it's for some reason easier to do it there. Alright, so we're just reorganizing this. And now that we have this, we can also now, for each curve, get the statistic. I mean, for each point that comes in, we want to get the vector data of the position. And by getting that, we can basically translate this newly translated object to the proper location. So if we try that, and then we connect to the other side, we have them, but they're like kind of offset, versus if we deal with corrected geometry, it's easier. So let us plug this up. Wait, what happened here? Oh, my bad. I'm telling you, it's early in the morning. I like to get my brain before my brain wakes up. Alright, so we rotate it, and then we fill it, and then from here, we transform it to basically go to the center. And then we're feeding this here with intentions on placing it at every point perfectly centered. I apologize there. You know, you take notes and then you think that you took good notes, realize you did not take very good notes because you were overconfident in yourself. So that's what you see happening in the background on the technical level. I'm a guy in over his head. Alright, so now from here, let's shrink this down. We don't need that. But for the index, we do want to have the index be the value. And here we go. We are now cooking with gas, which isn't very good for you, but might I add. Another thing is our clock goes from 0 to 11. Not a very good clock. Let us use math, and the easiest way to fix this is to just add 1 there. Now our clock is saved. Now the next thing you probably are saying is, well, what about your point order? Right before this, we were having a discussion about the best way to approach this clock tutorial, and I wanted to actually solve it in a smart looking way that would be cool in video, but instead you're going to watch me be a hack today. But it's fine, it's fine. It feels good. Okay, so we don't need that going there anymore. And let's add a transform geometry. And we're just going to rotate this up. And the magic number is 120. Oh, no, it's not. It's negative 120. Look at me being absolute. And the next thing is we probably want to rotate this around 180 degrees, which I know, shameful display in order to get a clock to behave right. But in the end, I got a clock. I mean, I can't really add as much time to it as I want. Like, I was trying to bring up the point, like, hey, what if the person who put 60 seconds in a minute was wrong? Like, I was discussing the origins of it, and I was like, you know, maybe they're wrong. Maybe there's like 120, and you know, maybe there's like only 4 giant hours in a day. Like, I was trying to propose new time, but you know, you start talking to people about that, they tell you you're ridiculous. They don't even want to hear you out, let me tell you. So just be prepared for that if you're trying to propose any sort of new timelines to people. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is probably put ticks around this. So we use the mesh circle. Let's say that we took this same circle and we instance on points a plane, or I guess in Blender's case a grid, but a plane should come up even if you type in grid. And we see that this thing needs a life transformation, and I have just the one for it right there. Which way is the right way? I guess any way is the right way. Which way do we want it to go? So for the rotation, let's bring out a rotation Euler. That's not it. Maybe it's Euler to rotation. Maybe it's not either of those. Maybe it's align rotation to vector, and then we plug up a normal. I mean, I don't even know if that was the right normal. Didn't feel like it. Alright, let's try it again. I guess normal has two of those now. I wasn't completely attentive to that before. Alright, let us try that again. Let's bring in an align Euler to vector, which they say is depreciated. And let's bring in a position. And let's look at this from top view. And we no longer have it deforming out of shape. However, this thing is deprecated, so I don't even want to use it. You know, they're talking smack about it. That means I'm gonna open up the file someday and it's just gonna be broken. So there. Now I have an option that'll survive unto the future. Alright, just playing around. Alright, and this is just the numbers. We can go ahead and shrink this down into something, but I suspect that we're going to be returning back to it and having just a little bit more fun before the day is over. Especially because I remembered that text scroll is a thing, and font scroll, and font scroll is always a fun time. You know, any opportunity to use it, gotta use it. It's just luxurious. Alright, so now we're down to instances on points. And what do we want to do now that we have this here? We have this set up to be based off of the 12. Let's take a look at what we have going on here. 1, 2. Alright, so we have one for each hour, and then we have 4A. Alright, back to work. So we're going back into local mode, back into geometry nodes, and you know, despite our victory, we actually have to give ourselves more points. So we're going to do another circle, and this one's going to be 60. 12 times 5. You know, same fun quirks, as in rotated by 90 on this new circle that there's way too many of. And what we want to do is have these happen on only the ones where the hours are happening. So that's going to fall down to selection. So for selection, let's come out to a modulo. Sometimes I don't even know if it's the right option when I'm saying it. And we're just going to do index. And we want this happening pretty much the opposite of that. We want 4 ticks in between. So let us say not. You know, I was about to make a Borat joke. Also, that's not going to work. I hate it when the nodes slide out like that. So we're going to just jump under editing, go to node editor, and just turn off auto offset. You know, it'll be weird as we get used to it not being on, but it is for the better. Just be scooting things out the way. I know what I'm doing. I'm laying nodes on top of nodes. So for the next trick, we want to Control-Shift-D. Actually, let's try it again. We want certain points though. We want to keep most of what we have, except we do want to duplicate that, and we'll just bring this down here, and we'll just mute that, and that's what we have now. And if we bring in the size, it is coming together. Let us do a join just to see the fruits of our labor. So pretty nice here. And we could probably make some inputs that'll help us deal with that. So I'm going to duplicate this, bring it down here, and we probably want to be able to control tick size X, tick size Y, and at least now we have some flexibility. However, the other tick is like, yo, I'm adjustable too. So let's duplicate this input again. Is there a duplicate? Yes, there is. Is there a duplicate? Alright, and which one is not used? The ones that are circles. I didn't want to unify it, but that's what it means to duplicate them like so, willy-nilly. This small tick. Let's try that again. There we go. And to be honest, we probably also want to translate it too. So combine X, Y, Z. And we'll just call this small tick Z. And you'll at least from there be able to choose that position. And that sort of apparatus could also be useful over here, where a little translation might give us character. Before we do that, let us duplicate it. And we just call it tick Z. And no one will come in and mess with these things. But if they do, they'll be in for a surprise. I mean, and the surprise is that they're working. The surprise isn't that, you know, we left them out in the rain. So I think we are making good progress. So we now have our ticks. Just going to split that off and connect it here. Let's look at it now. So if we want to deal with the numbers offset, we can just scale the circle, this circle, circle of destiny, and it'd probably be just as easy as just dealing with that, which, come to think of it, we'll just call that ring radius. And probably move this one up, kind of important. So now we have a ring radius. And this one is the number radius. And I would just duplicate it, but it'll inherit the same values. So we'll call this number radius. And a lot of these parameters, if Blender had the flexibility, which I know it doesn't right now, it will probably at some later time for sure, allow me to put these where I want. I mean, to collapse them inside their own fields. It probably is already a thing if it's not a thing already. Okay, and it is. I'm behind on the times. Let us Alright. Let's see. Okay, so I got the wide in there. Yeah, the repositioning is a bit weird. Tick size X, Y, small tick Y, Z. Alright. Something like that for at least now. And if I want to add more hours in the day, just go full lunatic. I mean, now that I can do panels, radius, ticks. Alright, this is an interesting node I got going on here. Alright, this is way further than I got before. And I have so much versatility. Which I kind of like the idea of that. Yeah, I'm always looking at things like infographics and ads. So I see something like that, I'm like, okay, that's an effect. I want to experiment with that, with the logo, of course. So let us continue to look at this. And what else do we possibly want to do? Oh, scale of the I mean, we could probably have it support multiple fonts through a switch. But we definitely want to be able to adjust the size of the letters. You know, now we have a slider for character size. And let us play with the scroll here. So I'm going to select this and we're just going to font scroll. I'm going to press S and we're just going to look around just for something kind of formal. I just locked something in right there. And let's come back and look at what we have. So every moment we stray further from our clock's light. I guess we can formally position it. Alright, so we lock these down into a relative, these hands down into a relative position from which we cannot move them. And why is that? We look at this and we have 79 instances. Do we say realize instances on this? And then we can move it. Why is it stuck there? And then, you know, it'd be easier is if we went to the hands collection and on these objects which have the most random unapplied rotations ever, we just lock them all in. And what hath we done here? Where is it? Okay, so now our hands are being placed here. Rotation. They were set for that rotation, so when we changed them, we changed everything with these. This one's now needing to be done on the Y. This one now needs to be done on the Y. Or is it the X? I want to revert my file, but I'm almost more curious as to what damage I've done and how it is even a thing, because we jump over to collection 3 where our hands are. Alright, so we want to apply the scale, the rotation, and also I wonder why when I rotate it from the side that the other numbers even have to move. But am I overthinking it? So we go back here and we just look at what we've done with our geometry here. In fact, let's jump all the way here. This is what we have. And then we end it here. Where is my origin at? I guess the only way to even see my origin is to enable my gizmo. Alright, after a moment of brief reflection, I realized that I wasn't paying the most attention. I have to wear glasses nowadays, and I'm not always wearing them. In fact, I'm not ever wearing them. So we look at these and we see that there's values still in these fills that aren't supposed to be, which was causing them to basically appear the way they weren't supposed to. So now, if we go back, we are in good shape. I was like about to revert the file, and it just seemed super excessive, especially because it didn't technically make any sense. And when that happens, you know, I get more caught up in, is it a bug with Blender or is it a bug with me? And sadly I'm bugged. I kind of like the number ring system we got going now. Like, I think we're cooking. So let's move this. We'll just move it out of this collection. We don't even need it. And what we want to do is just rotate it. Ah, yes, the original problem, being able to move it freely. So let's go back in here. So you can move it if so, but not if it's relative. When they get like that. Alright, time for another one of those life lessons where I realize I should have properly planned and now it's coming back to bite me. So I'm going to press Alt-G and reset everything to the center, and hopefully that works out and everything's in the center and no one is being forgotten about. And yeah, of course, there's objects covering other objects. So now let's take this, we'll apply the rotation. We'll come back out. I thought I was in local mode. Let's go here, set this to original. And now we have that flexibility we need. I guess I've never paid attention to my ability to translate. Let's move this around. And everything is inside. So now let us look at our reference image. We'll go back to the layout tab. Just kind of take a look at this. And let's adjust our character size. Let's adjust our number ring. Put these characters on the inside. Also, we'll need to thicken them up, extrude them back a bit. And so now when it comes to the ring, this is where it's going to get really specific. So something like that. In fact, I almost feel like we could make it without any thickness and then just put a solidified modifier on the entire thing afterwards. And that would basically give us the thickness that we need. But because of what we're dealing with, we don't have that luxury. I'm just thinking about, do I want it to extrude using geometry nodes, or do I want to just handle it via a modifier? Modifiers give such a level of convenience that they're a good choice. Let's bring this in. And if we make it a separate object, that could work too. Let's adjust the number ring radius, make it a little bit smaller. Oh, time just freezes for us, right? That's the problem, is I don't remember that time is passing. Let's let time pass and examine this, think about how we want to finish this up. What we need to do is actually bring the numbers back a little bit with like Z depth. So let's jump back over into geometry nodes. Let's Alt-VE. We need the shadows. The shadows tell us how far away we have it. So that was us inside of hands. Here we are with our system for putting the text before it combines into join, and then we have our ticks. So let's put them in a second join. Cut that connection and let us realize instances. Not my favorite thing to do. Let's extrude. As we pull it in backwards, though, we see that Yeah, we probably need to pull it back. So, you know what, we'll bring it out like so. Then connect it. So we have something like that. And we also want to be able to control the Z depth of this. So let's put a transform geometry in here. And we're just trying to choose how far it comes out. So we get something like that. TikTok. Never mind, I was about to make a song reference to AI music. We'll avoid that. And we also see that the rotation could be a little bit more perfect. Something like that. Input. We want a group input. And for this Y, I guess it's kind of important. I'm glad Blender lets me use characters that folders won't let me name. You know, I always try to put dashes and certain symbols, and they're like, you can't use that. It's like, oh. But watch, it'll probably happen when I'm like 80 and I'm about to die. But now we can sit back and we can admire our clock. In fact, jump into rendered view, and it's just the dullest, loneliest clock. But that's just until we hit it with a little bit of lighting. So let's jump back over to our layout tab and just let the clock tick. Maybe place our cursor in the center. And then we can Alt VB. And just look for the right light. In fact, let's try cycles. In fact, as I look at it, I think that the numerical depth is just too dominating. There we go. Maybe this would be a good place to leave off. You know, we'll scroll through a few lighting setups, but cycles is looking a little odd these days. Let's see. Is it the ray tracing? I did lessen my GPU in order to save on power bills, so could also be that. I should at least give it a proper ending, meaning that with the 3D cursor there, I take a look at the camera from this angle, press Q, and bring up Add Camera. And with our empty placed in the middle, I'll have to bring it up, lower the camera down, bring it back a little bit, GZZ, and something like that will do. However, I wanted a more interesting camera angle. Something like that. And let's take a look at it in rendered view without anything. And you know, as I was sitting there staring at it, I was like, you know, I think it came out pretty good. It looks pretty good. However, the first camera angle I would want would be something along the lines here. So let's see, did we put a marker? Yes. So let's go back to the beginning. I'm going to put my 3D cursor there, and then deselect, add another camera, GZZ, can't see anything, GZZ, pull it back a little bit. Alright, let's just see that again. Maybe from this side. That camera would just be getting a little too close in my opinion. That's what I'm over here thinking about. How's the camera get so close? There's always work to be done and things to check into. And cameras to pull back. Let's press home to see the whole timeline. And we'd just be having fun with this all day. Let's put back our previous camera. Maybe even bring this camera back. Alright, let's let it play. We're just having some fun here. And that time's not even accurate. I mean, in any moment the cats are going to come and tell me what time it is. And it's utterly a nightmare. You won't believe these guys. They just meow at me. They look me dead in the eye. They meow at a frequency that penetrates sound canceling headphones. But I like what we did here. The floor looks like it's made out of melted goo, but what can you do? You can try to avoid drinking the goo and dissolving in the river, but you know, leaving it on a frame like that definitely gives this clock the importance it deserves. But with that, I will finally wrap up this video. Thank you for watching.